Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. This is for July 21st, 2024, episode 235. My goodness. It's a lot of episodes. This is stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser Paul Green coming to you as I pursue my dreams as a performer. And share whatever tidbits, whatever wisdom of mine. Wisdom? I'm sharing wisdom, everybody. Whatever wisdom I'm picking up on the way as I just talk through this crazy ambition that I have as a performer. So, yesterday I was in Indio in the morning, woke up in Indio, and then drove the rest of the way back to Phoenix. I had a very random but fun little weird coincidence that happened at my hotel in Indio. I don't even remember what the hotel was, whatever the cheapest hotel was on Priceline. Because I did not really make any money for my stand-up show the other night. So, which is, not uncommon at this stage. There's just a lot of either shows you don't make any money on or shows that even if you do make money, by the time you travel or get there, you're losing money. But of course, the hope for all of us is that we will get to a point to where we actually are able to demand a lot more money. So it's actually that thing where you're making money instead of constantly losing it. But anyway, so I'm at this hotel in Indio, and they have this sort of display case. Display case probably isn't the right word. It's like a shelf of pamphlets. I don't even really know where else I've seen these. I guess any sort of organization, maybe like a church or whatever, that would have like pamphlet type marketing material like in the front of the building. Think of that, only massive. Massive is probably too strong a word. It was about 4 feet tall and like 5 feet wide, and just had hundreds and hundreds of pamphlets in it. Probably, oh gosh, now I'm just trying to give myself an accurate estimate. Maybe 100 different pamphlets, and obviously there was like stacks of them that you could just pick all the, just take a look at all these pamphlets. And it was all sort of like, tour pamphlets about tourist attractions and, shows and the casinos and all of that stuff. And I just glance over at this thing. I mean, and it's pretty much like, it's like spam email, but in real life. It's probably the best way to describe it. Have you hopped into your spam folder on your email account lately, and you just do a quick scroll down, and it's just hundreds and hundreds of emails of just the most random companies trying to advertise to you. And so anyway, it had sort of that type of volume, just like 100 different. I know a good comparison. Think of like the greeting card aisle at at the store. When you're looking for a greeting card, and there's just like rows and rows of greeting cards, rows and columns. It would be like one section. It would be like the maybe the thank you card portion of the greeting cards. It wasn't all of them. You didn't get birthdays, romance, whatever holidays coming up, but we'll just take the thank you section. And, obviously, each greeting card, there's, like 4 or 5 greeting card, the same one behind it, right? So that's sort of what this pamphlet shelf was like. And it's just there in the lobby of the hotel. of this hotel there in Indio. And I just happened to glance over, and I could only see the top because, the shelves make it so that the pamphlet, only like the top part of it is exposed. And I see this pamphlet that says magic and comedy. And I just thought, ooh. Now again, there's a shelf with 100 different pamphlets. And, they're all invisible to me, but I see this pamphlet and I just see the words magic and comedy. And there was about 2 or 3 rows of this magic and comedy pamphlet. So obviously, as a comedian, I'm intrigued. I also, have my friends at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. I've talked about that before. So I grabbed the pamphlet, and lo and behold, why did they say lo and behold? Never occurred to me until now. Lo and behold. All right, I'm going to have to Google the origin of that. So on the cover of this Magic and Comedy pamphlet are 2, I'm going to call them children. They're probably late to mid teenagers now, but their names are Caden and Brooklyn Rocket. Now, who is Caden and Brooklyn Rocket? I'm glad you asked, invisible internet audience. Caden and Brooklyn Rocket happen to be the stepchildren of my old roommate, Dustin. So, like 15, 16 years ago, I lived in this house in Gilbert that was just a bachelor pad. We would rent out the individual rooms to bachelors. So this guy, Dustin, moves in, and he and I become good friends. He's just one of the coolest human beings I've ever met in my life. He is so genuine. He's chill. He has a great sense of humor. He and I just had so much fun. We have all these inside jokes. He also played basketball. We used to go play basketball, maybe once a week or so. Way into sports. He's way into comedy. He's way into entertainment. We just got along great. And I had so many great experiences with him when we lived together. I remember this one time. I just thought about this story recently. So it's kind of interesting that this whole thing happened. So this one night, his car won't start in the Walmart parking lot by our house. And it's like 10 o'clock or something. And so he calls me if I can come pick him up from the Walmart, which honestly was only like a half mile away from where we were living out in Gilbert. So I'm like, sure. So I drive over to the parking lot. I pick him up, or I don't pick him up. I just start talking to him, and I'm just going, well, what do you want to do about your car? And he just is like, well, obviously I can't get it started. And so I was just like, well, did we test the battery? And he goes, no. I was like, well, why don't we test the battery? So we take out his battery. We drive it to this AutoZone that's open till midnight. We get to the AutoZone. They test the battery. They say the battery is fine. We're like, well, the car's not starting. And they're like, well, it's probably the starter motor. So, okay. So, I think, I'm trying to remember the order of events here, how this whole night went. But, so we go back to the Walmart, and we go, and while we were at AutoZone, we bought one of those Haynes manuals, right, that pretty much show you how to make any repair in a car, right? So we buy the Haynes manual, and then we go back to the Walmart, and we start trying to take his starter motor out, and it's like way dug down into the engine, and like it would, like 3 or 4 times something would come up that we would need a different tool for, so we would go to the Walmart and then just buy the tool and come back out and like take the next bolt off. And then, oh, now we need this bolt and we don't have that size. And we'd go back into the Walmart. I'm a little vague on the details here, but it was something like that. And we eventually get the starter motor out. And now we have to get back to the AutoZone. It's like almost midnight. So we get back to the AutoZone just in time. They test the starter motor, determine that it actually was a bad starter motor. They have the replacement one there. So now they give us a new starter motor. We drive back to the Walmart. And by the way, the 24-hour or the AutoZone, I think it closed at midnight. I don't think it was 24 hours, was like 20 minutes away. It wasn't super close. So we're driving like these long trips to AutoZone and back to the parking lot. So then we have to stick this new starter motor in and then put everything back together. And remember, it's now like getting 1, 2 in the morning, and we're in this parking lot, and we finally get everything put back in. And then we just had that moment of truth of like, oh my gosh, did we do it right? This thing is going to start. And I just have this memory of my buddy Dustin, after we had spent hours trying to get this starter motor out, get it replaced, having to take all these trips to AutoZone, all these trips into Walmart. Oh, the police showed up because it looked like we were doing something weird to the car. Somebody called the police on us. I guess it looked like we were still in the car or something. Or maybe that was a different story. Maybe there was a story where he locked his keys in his car. This was 15 years ago. I'm doing my best here, everybody, to recall this story. So anyway, but I do remember it, it's like 1, 2 in the morning. We get the starter motor in, and I still remember Dustin putting the key in the car, just turning the key, and the car just started right up. And he jumps out of the car and just starts like screaming, putting his hands up. I put my hands up, and we just start like running around the car, running around the parking lot with our arms up like we had just won, the NBA championship or something. We're like, oh my gosh, that started. And we're so excited that, we actually made a successful car repair. It was something that, it was a part that we had never replaced before. I've done plenty of car repairs on my day back when cars were simple enough that you could just, loosen a few bolts and take an old part out and put a new part in. So anyway, that was a triumphant moment for me and Dustin. So Dustin ends up meeting the woman he would marry, who was actually a high school friend of his. And she was married previously and had 2 kids with her first husband. And her first husband was a professional and is a professional magician who had a magic act on Vegas and was a very successful magician. So her and Dustin, I guess, were childhood friends, and it was the type of thing to where they were never really romantically involved, but they knew each other. She went on, did her thing, married that guy. That marriage didn't work out, but she had the 2 kids with him. She meets up with Dustin, and then they just have this like total like, oh my gosh, it's always been you moment. And they've been married ever since. So that's been, gosh, a good, 14, 15 years or something like that. And I think they're up to 3 kids between the 2 of them. So anyway, his stepkids, Caden and Brooklyn, because they have a father who's like a professional entertainer, their biological father starts teaching them magic and helping them put together a magic act. And, and he's taking them out to Hollywood and giving them agents and, getting them opportunities. And they're incredibly charming, so witty, just these talented, incredible kids. They get on America's Got Talent, and they do a magic act on America's Got Talent, and they're very successful. And it launched them into fame and success. And they were like 7 and 3 years old or 4 years old or something like that. I don't remember the exact ages, but they were really, really young. And I actually remember Caden, the stepson, my buddy's stepson, he got booked in a major role on a feature film called, it's either Dark Skies or Gray Skies. Something is going on with the skies. Is it Gray Skies or Dark Skies? I can't remember. It might be Gray Skies. And it's this kind of like a kind of like a horror movie, not horror like blood and gore, but like horror like suspense and scare the crap out of you. And it's about like these aliens who sort of start haunting this kind of your modern suburban nuclear family, the husband and the wife and the two adorable kids. And the younger kid was played by Caden. And I still remember going to the premiere at AMC and seeing my buddy's stepson, his name showing up in the opening credits on this major film. Some of the other actors in it, I can't remember their names. Is it Terry Garr or Terry Carr? Shoot, I might be mixing up names. And then I remember the kind of that older guy who was in Whiplash. I can't remember his name. He was in Whiplash, and he used to do, I think, maybe he still does farmer insurance commercials. Kind of the old bald guy. He's just been, kind of a Hollywood staple actor for years and years and years and years. So he was in it. He played, because it is an alien movie, and he played kind of like the old guy alien expert who done all the research, who, once you have an alien, once the aliens have visited you, nobody will believe you and they all think you're crazy. So you have to go online, and then you find this guy because he's the one who's the expert on it. And so anyway, in the movie, the couple or the family starts getting these very weird, strange occurrences, and it turns out to be just these hyper-intelligent aliens who are just kind of picking and choosing human beings to terrorize just to see how they react. Very, very creepy movie. Very well done. It has those sort of suspenseful, oh, what's around the corner? What's happening? And so anyway, my buddy's stepson was like had a leading role. Like he was probably of the top 5 billing for that. So here I am in the middle of Indio at some random hotel. I happen to look over and grab a pamphlet, and the pamphlet is Caden and Brooklyn Rocket from America's Got Talent, and they're doing like their comedy magic tour, and I guess they were performing out at some casino there in Indio. So that was very random and just very cool to see, and it prompted me to call my buddy Dustin, because I haven't talked to him in a good 6 months, and he wasn't able to talk to him, but said we'll catch up tomorrow. So very cool. It's just fun seeing my friends and my friends' kids out there being successful, especially in the entertainment industry, because I don't know if you know, but that is what I'm trying to do as well. So just a cool little experience. So anyway, so that was out in Indio. I drove back to Phoenix. By the time I got into town, I pretty much had to go straight to my open mics. I produce an open mic in Mesa, and we do 2 1-hour open mics back to back. And man, for both open mics, so again, it's 2 different open mics. I tried all new material in both open mics, and I just didn't like any of it. Neither did anybody in the at the open mic either. But So I don't know. I'm really kind of in a lull here right now with writing this next sort of the next stage of my act. I've got about 20 minutes of material that I really like, that I'm having a lot of fun with. But that's not enough. I need to get to about 60, and I don't know, it just ain't happening. I'm writing every day, but I'll tell you, I'm just staring at a notebook and just writing whatever I can write, and there's just not really anything that's popping. So I'm going to need to get that figured out. It could just be I need to be a lot more focused, and maybe I really need to like book out like 2 hours or something, or 3 hours, and be like, I am going to go to the library for 3 hours. I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm going to turn off all distractions and just bury myself and commit to just writing nonstop, keep the pen moving on paper, and see what comes out. But that's where I'm at right now. So other than that, this week is pretty low key. I will be heading to San Diego this Saturday to perform at the Merc. Technically, it's Temecula, not San Diego, and so very much looking forward to those shows. But other than that, this week is just going to be a lot of writing, a lot of catching up on some admin stuff, personal stuff, and getting ready for my show on Saturday. All right. So that is the quick update, everybody, on my day yesterday. But those of you who follow the podcast know that I have been listening to the 48 Laws of Power and giving my critique on each of the laws and whether I agree with it or whether I think that perhaps the law may provide power in the short term. What is it going to do in the long term? And just giving my overall critique of the book, which has been pretty harsh. I have not been a huge fan of the principles espoused in this book. However, today's principle is actually completely different. I actually totally agree with what today's law was. And ultimately, it had to do with do not isolate yourself in a fortress. Isolation leads to destruction or something like that. I mean, that's the principle of it. And so the book just talks about how if you isolate yourself too much, you cut yourself off from potential allies. You can cut yourself off from potential friendships. You also cut yourself off from being, in the know, having your ear to the ground, knowing what's going on, knowing the culture, knowing what people are talking about, so that as a ruler, you will be able to be connected and exercise better leadership and all of that. And so, even the examples that the book gave were far less nefarious than some of the previous chapters. Like, there wasn't much of a, like, don't isolate so that you can manipulate people and then destroy them. It was really just more, don't isolate because that's actually better for everybody, and you're going to be more connected and have more opportunities for friendships and allies and all that stuff. And so I was like, all right, I think we're about 15 or 16 laws in, and now we have a law that I'm actually a big fan of. I do very much believe in having to put yourself out there, engage with the world, engage with people, which, let me tell you, as a self-identified introvert, which shocks a lot of people when I tell them I'm an introvert, because they go, oh, but Paul, you perform, you're a stand-up comedian. And I go, yeah, that has nothing to do with introversion versus extroversion. It really just has to do with how you restore your energy. Introverts need to be alone and isolated to restore energy. Extroverts need to be in public and need to, like, go dancing, right? Like, if an introvert needs to decompress, they'd be like, I am going to go sit in a room by myself, or I'm going to go watch a movie by myself, or go read a book by myself. Extroverts are like, I need to go to a club. I need to go dancing. I need to call a group of friends and, go out to eat. I mean, that's a drastically oversimplified explanation between the two. But anyway, as a performer, though, and very introverted, one of my biggest challenges is the business side of comedy, which is the networking side. And it's talking to everybody. And after each show, going up and connecting with all the audience and trying to get them to, follow me on Instagram or visit my website or, whatever it is. And, it's a lot. It's a lot for me to do that, to interact with people. And what's very interesting about reading that law today is, while I was driving home from Indio, my good buddy Josh texted me just this really nice message of how grateful and excited he is to be doing the Midlife Crisis comedy show with me, and that, he feels just very strongly that it's going to be successful, which I do as well. And he made this comment. He just said, because I said I feel that he and I can get much further together than we could alone. And he said, yes, I've seen so many comics try to compete with each other over table scraps. And yeah, I've seen that too. And I got to tell you something, that is just not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in trying to compete with another comedian to go make $50. And I've seen that before. I've seen comedians squabble over $50, $20, and I'm just going, okay, that's not even the galaxy that I want to be in. I want to be in a galaxy where, our show is so successful that we're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not more, to where, $50 is like, what? Really? You guys are going to argue and bicker over that, over $50, $20? But I've seen it. And so, it's just interesting being a stand-up comedian, because stand-up comedy is, by design, a solo act. It's just you up there with a microphone, and that can just be so challenging and so daunting to feel like you are it. It's all you, and you don't have any support or any help. And being able to team up with Josh, we have an awesome social media marketing person who's looking to maybe even expand her role even greater, which is just going to be amazing. And I really do think that we're going to be so much more successful together than we would apart. And so it's interesting because now I'm reading this principle about not being isolated. And I think it expands even more that not only should we not try to isolate ourselves, but in as much as it is appropriate, and obviously you're not doing anything unsafe, but getting out in the world and interacting with people and making connections and making networking connections and, friendships and allies and all that stuff, like the book says. And yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I will probably be one of the biggest hypocrites ever in terms of my capacity to not isolate, because again, I'm very introverted and I love being alone by myself a lot of the time, and I am. So anyway, I'm very grateful that I do have opportunities to create, to build this brand with Josh, and that, he's not going at it solo, I'm not going at it solo, and we can work together and collaborate and hopefully have a better outcome. So there you go. Of the 48 Laws of Success, there's one that I don't think I have any disagreements. Even when I listen to like his examples or anything like that, I'm going, yeah, I can get behind this. So there you go, everybody. All right. But that is the update for today, July 21st, 2024, episode 235 of the Paul Green Comedy Podcast. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.